Hey everyone, DXP Crypto here, and I know this is the one that you've been waiting for. I've got really special guest in the building today, and he needs no introduction. The business needs no introduction. The project needs no introduction. Introducing Tarik, Mr.
Hey,
Tarik from
everybody.
OctaSpace. Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
show, bro.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate the invite and I appreciate the chance to speak to you and obviously to all your followers and your community.
Fantastic, Tarik. So, look, we were just talking behind, backstage before we came on, and I could have continued. I actually forgot to press go live button, which is fantastic because you are just an extension of our wider community, to be honest. And it's a
Right.
pleasure to have you, man.
No, I'm like I said, I'm really happy to be here. I appreciate the time. I'm hopefully we can make a habit of this. You know, have a chill out session and just talk and catch up.
Oh yeah, we've got Cliff as our Resident Evil. He lives in the
Yeah.
Discord. So yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
might.
me and Cliff are often obviously in touch with each other, so there's a lot of connection here. So I'm sure we can make this a tradition.
Fantastic, bro. Good to have you, Tarik. And look, you are going to get some questions, no doubt. The community's been looking forward, but I just want to start off with your background. Just sharing with the community where and how you started OctaSpace, and maybe
Oh
prior to
God,
that.
now that's a question. Well, if you want my whole background, I mean, I can talk about some of my experience first. So, I mean, that as many of us have, I come from a originally traditional business background, right? Not that I was so. I finished university in the UK. I lived in the UK for over 20 years. And I started my career over there. I actually started originally as a software engineer, very long time ago, and ended up working at British Telecom. Um, yeah. Well, straight after uni, it took a while to get a job, but then I finished computer and network engineering,
It's good to
and then
talk.
after that, I got kind of shoved into management by very random kind of situation where my manager got, she went on maternity leave, and then they shoved me in her place. I mean, I was completely inexperienced at the time. And this was still while I was at British Telecom. And then kind of my career eventually kind of progressed from there. And I worked in, the biggest I worked in was where I got into project management was at William Hill. I'm sure you know who William Hill are, those who in the UK do. Those who don't, they're basically a gambling company, a bet maker. And I worked a lot on a digital transformation. I spent a lot of time in Gibraltar as well, offshore. Then I progressed into digital or CMS and web development companies where I managed those projects. Eventually program manager, and then I worked at Virgin Pulse, which is a big US healthcare company, and I spent a lot of time there as an engineering manager, project manager, and then product manager. So I have quite a wealth of experience. I've mainly worked a lot mainly in management positions, so managing overall, again, projects, both managing projects as well as business aspects, so finances and so on. And then we get to obviously OctaSpace. So as a lot of mainly, even though I've worked in various sectors, all of that has been very IT focused, right? So, and I mentioned to you, in William Hill, I was working as an IT infrastructure project manager. So a lot of that are both, I would say, let's say a use case or user facing product management and project management, as well as infrastructure and networking and so on. So I kind of amalgamated that experience and joined hands with Artem. We've known each other for some time. He's based in Ukraine, as many of you know, and we looked at the landscape. I was interested in crypto originally. I dabbled in a bit of mining even back then. I was a little bit late to the game. I started with the ETH mining, so not so much Bitcoin, but the crypto space really excited me. I was really, I was excited about the potential of blockchain. I saw it as we say as something new and exciting as a new feature. And and wanted to explore opportunities. And one of the things, was looking at our experience in the space that we have, and then saying, okay, let's put that together and say, okay, where do we see most opportunity? And so you look at traditional kind of computing space, right, in businesses. The issue you have is there's ultimately a very much corporate control, and they, fix pricing, they manipulate the situation, it's all centralized. There's no control. They control what you can do, what you can't do. And so there's that lack of freedom and space, right? And then, so OctaSpace was kind of born out of that idea of democratizing that computing power. How do we put that, in the hands of all the users or consumers? But what I wanted to do was also kind of diverge from that traditional model as well, is that the other issue that you have, if we're looking at, let's call it the definition of the problem, is that users are, it's a technical a hurdle for many users, right? It shouldn't really be intimidating to use platforms, right? To do certain compute services. So while what we originally did was implemented a computing marketplace. Now that's being reworked at the moment with a new complete refresh, and we can talk about some of that. But what I wanted to do was, even in traditional provider space, whether it's AWS or even VAST, they don't really have ready-made solutions to launch. You have to do a lot of setting up. You're wasting a lot of precious time. It requires technical knowledge and skills. You could certainly try and do rendering on AWS, but it's going to take a long time to get that set up. There's a lot of technical knowledge required, and then you've wasted a lot of money. And if you don't have the technical expertise, you're going to struggle. You can't use it. So I thought about the approach of, well, why don't we focus on ready to launch services? And that's what I usually call them, ready to launch. So first one we went with was, VPN. So let's do a VPN. We can leverage the infrastructure that we have, and don't forget all computing services, or all the nodes that we call them nodes, but they're effectively computer hardware in the marketplace, are provided by users, right? So anyone can provide a node, right? But a node can be a Raspberry Pi to a beast machine with 4090s or H100s, whatever. So there's no limitations, and likewise, we even support Intel GPUs, we support AMD GPUs, so you can provide any kit as part of that hardware. By the way, stop me if I'm getting boring, and feel free to jump in at any point.
No, please, yeah, we wanted to hear
I'm sure I have a tendency to put people to sleep because I can yap for hours.
But let's do it.
Yeah, so and then one of the other things was, okay, well, one of the key areas of growth is art, right? It's massive. I mean, don't forget rendering. People think I've been asked, can you explain to me what rendering is, right? Why does it require compute power? I think a lot of people associated with just video games, you say you have one GPU and it's running that. Those are pre-made renders. A lot of that is already pre-rendered work, right? When you think about what you have is rendering engines, and you use things like Blender, right? So you can create 3D models, very detailed, with exoskeletons. You put skin over them, and so on and so on. And you then can use motion capture to animate them, and so on. And then all of that is extremely intensive, especially if you're rendering it 4 or even 12K. It can take a lot of muscle power to really render that. So there are render farms out there. I think many of you know one of the most famous one is RNDR, right? And that's kind of I think they were obviously a first mover in crypto, but don't forget, and I'll get back to them in a second, but they're focused, and they're now focused on that right now. And obviously they're now dabbling in a bit of AI, but we're not focused just on rendering. What we have is expertise in all these areas. So I actually have guys who have expertise in rendering. And one of them, for example, has worked as a technical director in the rendering. He's in the rendering scene, and he's actually an expert in Blender and some of the other tools. So a lot of that technical direction came from them. But taking a step back, the point being is OctaSpace kind of we divest in various areas where we can leverage our platform to launch different services. There's nothing stopping us from doing that, and that's what we are doing. So we have multiple work streams working on multiple things. But going back to the rendering example, is we looked at solutions that exist,
right,
and how they currently operate, and they're very limited, right? Or what they can support, and it's very clunky for the end user. And then here's me, leveraging my product management experience. Is look, I want this to be extremely simple process. I want to click a button, and it just does things. And that's exactly what I did, right? So I can show you. In fact, if you let me share for a second. So, actually, I might be able to share screen. Okay. Okay. Window. Let's do this. Okay. So here's a Blender. I don't know if you can see my screen. So this is just you can't really tell what it is, but here we've got a little add-on on the right-hand side. It's called Octa Render, and I can name the job cup or something like that. Right. And then I can let's say cup test, right? And I can submit that job. And now what it does, it packs all the textures and everything together, and then it will submit that to the render farm. And the next thing, and while it's uploading, let me stop, and I can share the other screen. But let me press the button. But let me show my other window.
While you look for that, the moment you mentioned render, me and the community were like 100x.
Yeah, don't start. I mean, I'm not going to talk about pricing, so you know that. Right? I'm not talking about market behavior or anything like that. I'm strictly sticking to what my area of focus is, right? And so, yeah. But here the render should appear now once it submits. It's uploading at the moment. But it told, obviously I'm doing it from my PC, so my internet speed is probably going to be slow since I'm streaming. But once it appears, it'll be on here. But while we wait for that, the whole point being was that we wanted to build something that was easy to use. But then on top of that, you start going into, okay, what limitations exist for the other platforms? What are the limitations of R&DR, right? And I'll be honest with you. I mean, so R&DR, I don't know how much you know, but they are owned by the company Octa, and to be able to use them, you have to buy a license from their parent company. You can't just go into R&DR and just start rendering and pay by crypto. You have to actually pay for a centralized license. They take your card details. They take your personal details, and it's a centralized corporation, Octa. I don't know if you can see the render started now. So, and you can see, okay, so some of the frames are running now. And we've got 21 GPUs that got allocated to that. But the point is that, there's a licensing aspect. It is centralized, and they only support the rendering engine that Octa made, which is Dyanix.
Wow.
And now what we wanted to do was, okay, we looked at, this is really straightforward to use. I mean, now you can see I clicked a button, it submitted the render, and it's now rendering. That's it. Job's done, right? There's nothing else to do here apart from, once it's done, download the frames. That's it. So it's really straightforward. There's no, and you think about this is the kind of ethos we've applied to all products, is it needs to be easy to use. It needs to, and this is one of the attractions for artists, right? They can scale based on, one of the great things about this is they can scale based on budget. So they can set what their maximum budget is per hour in Octa. And I mean, they could put here 100 GPUs, but if the budget's not there, it won't allocate 100 GPUs. But it's kind of that, giving them the freedom. But they can do this on the fly. They can also downscale. So in the middle of the render, they can do that, right? So they can actually downscale or upscale in terms of how much hardware. So if they want to overspend, right, if they're in a rush, right, they could just put an unlimited budget and, you know, screw it, I'm going to render as quickly as possible. And it's one of the great features, at least from my perspective. But the other things are, you know, things like the way that renders. I mean, look, you've got to understand these are nodes located across the globe, right? So you've got some nodes in the US, in the UK, in Germany, in Australia, and you're spinning these up, and the user experience is so smooth. All these nodes are suddenly rendering individual frames on their individual GPUs, and then that's all getting, you know, kind of stitched together. It's pretty mind-blowing when you really think about it.
Well, right? There's an image actually. I wanted to show you because this is quite absolutely. Yeah. We were talking about this, myself and Cliff, and shout out to the big man because he's you know, he basically got me into start thinking big when it came to bringing you down. So yeah, big up yourself, Cliff. He's in the chat. But
hey, Cliff, how you doing?
This image here, we were talking about this yesterday or whenever we had a live together, and this is incredible. Now, what I said to him was, I remember back in 2006-07, the first time I saw Blu-ray, and the first ever movie that I really enjoyed was Casino Royale 007. And that was like out on Blu-ray, and it was just kind of so fresh. And it kind of reminded me when you see an incredible image rendered, like, I mean, this is something else. And talk to us about that. Similarly, basically the same process as what you were showing us in terms of
that is. I mean, you can render movie scenes in this. You can, you know, obviously a lot of that. I mean, this harks back to the CGI. Right, and that is CGI. I mean, everything that we see nowadays. Look, I mean, one of the guys, one artist actually that's used our platform has done work for Netflix, and I hear he's done even work for Taylor Swift apparently. But yeah, I mean, look, and he's done generative backgrounds, right? A lot of them record on green screen, and then you can render things in the background, and you know, a lot of that's already done. Now, what you're seeing here is from content or assets from the game Destiny 2. Now, I've actually never played it, but we work with a visual effects studio. So a lot of the work is outsourced to visual effects studios. So companies do that, right? They employ professionals that make artwork, right? A lot of them don't have those in-house. And then they create all these, they have the assets and so on, and then they create trailers and they do all these things. And this is one of them. The Cinema Motion's visual effects studio, they're a massive user, and they do most of this work. And they work directly with Bungie, with Coca-Cola, with various these. And so, but I mean, we put on a website projects rendered for. The issue is that often I can only what I get permission to reference, and that's one of the. I think Cliff's also mentioned it, right? Is when talk about who their clients are, and a lot of that is behind NDAs. Some things I would love to share. We actually published a commercial that was fully rendered on OctaRender, a commercial for a zoo. I can't remember the exact name of the zoo. I think we published it, whether it was last week or the week before. You could probably scroll down, and the entire commercial was rendered on our platform. But I only got the green light to publish it the other day, or when we did. I kept, you know, badgering them and asking, can I please get permission? And I even had to get them to approve the text on RX. If you keep going, there we go. That's the commercial that was entirely rendered on our platform. Yeah, Riverbag Zoo.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, so that was entirely rendered on our platform. So this is, you know, obviously it speaks volumes to what, you know, it's a testament to what we built and something I'm really proud of, but the job's not finished yet. There's actually more that we're branching out in. So when I go back to what we tackled, a lot of that was obviously Blender. Blender is one of the, you know, biggest 3D tools out there right now, and it's open source, so it's also available to many. The other one that we're now looking to branch out into is Unreal Engine. Obviously, that's also popular. One of the things I think often people don't understand, though, is that Unreal Engine is a gaming engine, right? And even though you build 3D, you can't do everything you can in Blender, in Unreal Engine, but Unreal Engine also has its own benefits, right? And so anyway, we're branching out and we're looking at exploring how, what other areas we can tackle, all in the spirit of increasing adoption. But obviously, I'm very happy because we absolutely have fantastic adoption. I mean, you can go on our X feed, and whenever we get tagged by artists, where you can see, in fact, there's a short movie that was rendered. That's pretty cool. If you go up a little bit up, just that one. There's a YouTube link to it, and this is a short movie. That's only a short clip of it, but it's pretty cool. I mean, this is all rendered by different artists using our platform. And I think all this is fantastic. It's a real showcase.
It's insane, man. Look, we're not going to talk about pricing, but we, as a community, know when a project is a fair launch, when it has a proper building fundamentals, and it finally gets the limelight. We know where things are going. Now, one of the things that I'm impressed by, let's just take it back to your partnership with Cliff and the team at Dynix. What I'm interested in, I mean, I love the fact that you guys leverage CPU and GPU. But the unique aspect of it is the ease of that service. And you can also rent out your external traffic if you've got VPN or your GPUs, your CPUs. What is the relationship with Dynix? Is it purely from the quantum side, or is it purely from the GPU side? How do you guys work together?
So in the simply, and I'm gonna Cliff would be the techie here, but I'm gonna be explaining it in the most simplest terms. One of the great things about, so let me step back for a second, preface this. So OctaSpace, we originally focused our business model on consumer first, right? And a lot of that is, when I said about simplicity, was average Joe and so on. And so one of the biggest issues in crypto, especially crypto projects, is getting a foot in the door with enterprise solutions or enterprises and corporations. Now, the synergy here in relation to Dynix and Octa, Dynix do focus a lot on the corporate side of things, but their solution uses GPUs for the AI aspect of quantum, right? It's training and quantum learning. But they can't use those GPUs for actually churning out the results in terms of visually. Let's say you were trying using computing or quantum computing to work out the fluid dynamics. You'll get the data back, right? It'll churn out and get the data back quickly. What OctaSpace can do then is visualize that. So you're potentially, it could render that in a 3D model, right, and visualize that using on-premise compute power. So that's the difference, and that's where the synergy lies. Is we can leverage our computing resources, and then we get the benefit of also having a foot in the door for enterprise customers, because that's they'll, through their subscription model, we get a certain amount into our platform where node providers will get paid for that computing time. For rendering. So there's that aspect of it, and that's one of the things where we focused on. But the other one is in our marketplace, you can actually launch the Dynix compute service. So you can actually a user can go in there and start using it. So there's a two-pronged area there. I think one of the things I love about Dynix and Cliff especially, obviously, but yes, Cliff, if you could dumb it down, that'd be great. Thank you. I was just reading that comment quickly, but I saw it on the corner of my screen. But where was I? I lost my train of thought there for a second. Where was I? Bring me back, Bruce.
Yeah, we were just talking about the marketplaces
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I mean that's one of the additional. Right, yeah. So in terms of partnerships, so what are the issues with generally partnerships in crypto? A lot of them are just smoke and mirrors, right? And a lot of that is just pure marketing, right? And it's aimed at satisfying crypto bros and trying to just generate that hype that's associated with that marketing. But there isn't any synergy there. I mean, we've been reached. Many projects have reached out to us and said, "Oh, do you want to partner with us?" And the amount of times I've said no, I can't even count anymore, because I don't see any synergy. I mean, I've been reached out to by projects where, okay, what do you have? Where's your platform? Oh, it's coming up. It'll be implemented. Well, no, I'm not interested in that, right? You've got nothing. So what's the point here? But with Dyanix, they actually have something, right, and tangible, and it benefits both of us. So that's that synergy, right? And I've always propagated that approach. Is it needs to make sense. There needs to be some benefit from both sides, and it can't just be a marketing gimmick, right? And that's exactly what it isn't.
Well, here's a funny one. So you basically have multiple different projects, or even companies, as you call them, in the crypto space now, all trying to do what you do very easy. Now, doing the research, I mean, this was quite it was quite actually an eye opener for me. So you got render for graphics and GPU, well, mostly graphics. You got mass network for VPN. You got Flux for data storage. What if you could do all of that in house, and the average man on the street can actually use those services?
Right.
Just let's talk about how. I mean, again, the elephant in the room for us as investors always is it's always we look at the charts, we look at the performance, but you often wonder why something does really well. In the case of, for example, Casper, similar project, fair launched, completely, proof of work. I mean, yours is proof of work plus proof of authority, which I would ask you about in a minute. But when Render offers one service, Mass Network does another, Flux does another. But Octa, and this is what investors don't actually know sometimes, they will tell you Octa is a deep-in project. Okay, that's the governing umbrella there. But how do you see that competition developing? Because you've got one project in-house doing everything to obviously offer the service, and you can actually pay in crypto, as you said.
Yeah,
Which is
So well, let's take a step back for a second. I hate this word competition, right? And think about it. Think about it this way, mate. Is even in traditional world, there's competition. Remember Pepsi Cola, Intel AMD, right? Nvidia AMD, and so on. And I think competition is healthy. It's important in this space. Competition fuels innovation, right? And in fact, the fact there is competition feeds us both to be innovative and provide a better service, make something better, right? I mean, I've done market research. We all have. And it's the nature of the business is look at what others have done and see how you can improve. What don't you like, right? I think about it in I am a standard user. And I'll tell you one of the symptoms actually that exists in crypto in general. Right. First of all, many projects don't really look at focusing on adoption. They really don't. Look at the marketing strategy. Read the white paper. Read any brochures or anything they have. And when they say marketing, it's all crypto marketing. It's geared towards investors. 100% of the time. Yep. You will rarely see anything that says grow our platform in terms of adoption. And adoption, I mean actual users, not adoption of how many people hold your token or coin.
Right.
So that's one thing I want to preface. But on the other hand, I've been asked many times of competition. I don't look at things as competition. I look at this as choice, providing users a choice, right? And as you say, you have choice. Even in traditional world, you have, let's say for compute power, you have AWS, you have Google, you have Microsoft, Azure. You've got plenty of different service providers for different things. How many hosting providers are there? Thousands, right?
Of them, yeah.
Thousands. That doesn't mean they've all gone bankrupt, or failed, right? It's a big world out there. We need to understand that. And there are many consumers, and you've got to pitch it to the right audience, but you've got to do it right. And this is why I kept saying and we've chosen a difficult path. Being a fair launch project is difficult. It's an extremely, let's say, treacherous path in terms of success. Why I say that is that, look, launching a token is very easy, right? And there is often a lot of that. We have pre-allocations, they pay calls, they do a lot of that. They can easily pay for listings and so on. When you're doing a fair launch, right, you're not enriching yourself from the start at all. And so you only have a finite amount of funds to work with. So you're a little bit limited to what you can do and your scope. You can't just suddenly throw thousands around for listings, for promotion. And then you've got to look at what you're building and providing, and you've got to strike a balance, right? I mean, as I said to you, our marketing has mainly been focused on end users, getting those users to use our platform, because ultimately, especially in our case, right, max supply will be reached in 2027. At that point, our only source of revenue will be from transactions for services, right? There is no more mining. There's nothing. We will be changing consensus, and at that point, right, our only source of income will be a certain portion of the fees that transact between end users and node providers. And so, when we take that into perspective, we have a very short timeline we're working with to churn as much out as possible, to drive as much traffic and as many users as possible to use our platform and use technology solutions. And so, for example, we're looking at, we've just, one of the things that was missing was a desktop app for VPN. Okay, we're about to release that now. It's done. And we've submitted to the Microsoft store. So you'll be able to download our desktop app for VPN. But you also have our Android app. You can use iOS app as well, just for VPN, for example. And it's dirt cheap. It really is dirt cheap. But it's all about volume. It's not about, high fees. It's about driving that traffic and increasing volume and uptake. We can handle the volume. That's not an issue. So driving that volume was what's going to generate and continue generating revenue. And that generating revenue for node providers and generating revenue for us, ultimately, at the end of the day. But all that revenue that we get, we keep continuing to pump back into investing into developing more. And I've said this many times, is we're looking to focus on staying around for the next 10 years. Right, 20. Yeah. We're not here, here today and tomorrow. But going back to your original question, and you're right, many projects do focus on a finite area or a spectrum of services. But what we said was, look, our node infrastructure and our software enables us to launch anything, really anything. So the world's our oyster. Right, and so what we've done is taken that approach of, let's do market analysis. So I know you brought up quickly the strategic roadmap. Well, when people ask for roadmaps, you often see in a lot of crypto projects they have a roadmap. That roadmap is really all that they're going to do. Ours is not. So let me quickly explain a strategic roadmap. Strategic roadmap is our guide, right? These are key focus areas, not this is what you're going to get, and that's the end of story. Is we do what's called PI planning or program increments, and this is a program that you see now, the strategic roadmap, and we break up the year in program increments, and then we take an agile approach where we develop certain key areas based on priorities. But what this also enables us to do is that throughout the year, continue market analysis, because technology is moving so fast.
Right.
There are emerging trends and changing trends. And if we see potentially a key focus areas that we potentially could monetize and develop, we're going to focus on that. So we might change, certainly. We need that flexibility to be able to adapt to market conditions. I think that's important. So, but everything that we've got on this, we're already working on, and pretty much is going to be mostly done by the end of the year. So there isn't anything out. There was a couple of other additional things outside of this that we're exploring. but a lot of this is what's going to be in the year. I think a lot of that is already, some of that has already been done. One of the key ones that we need to develop by the end of the year is storage. That's a lot more of an area that we've only temporarily started on. I think a lot of the focus has been getting a lot of our marketplace, new rendering platform, VPN, and AI solutions. So those are the key focus areas that we've been focusing on this year. And then storage is kind of taking a step, at the side for now, and it's kind of being worked on bits by bits and jump on. But we'll throw more attention to that towards the latter part of the year. But the point being is that strategic roadmap is the guide, right? It's
guide, right.
What are the focus areas for this year? And that's why there's also, I would say, to a certain degree, some areas are very specific, other areas are more generic. Why? Because so in the scope of AI, at the time we weren't 100% sure, okay, what everything will cover, but now we have a lot more clarity. Is once we do that, we plan out the product and say, okay, this is what we want it to do. We do a lot more. We have a Figma, for example, to what the design is going to look like. A lot of that you plan during the year as you're going through that and looking at what potentially you could do. We have to train our own AI models. Okay, we have to figure out what data sets we're going to use to train those models. And for example, just recently for our AI tool, I reached out to our community and said, okay, if you're to use it, what would you ask it? What information do you need it to give you? How do you want that visual representation? So I want them to use it. I want people to actually use it. It can't just be, here's an AI tool and done, right? It needs to be something that's going to be adopted by people. And that's why a lot of that research goes into that, strictly as from a product management perspective, right? You're doing your analysis of who your use cases are, what your target audience is, and so on. And so, yeah, there's a lot of that. And obviously even blockchain, right? I mean, we have a blockchain, it's great, and we can grow that ecosystem. And so we're trying to encourage more projects to grow, which is great. So there are a lot of focus areas. And obviously, for 2025, we're going to have a new strategic roadmap. And that's just how it goes. But as I said, being a fair launch project is very difficult. And I know you're loading up charts, and something I try not to look at. I genuinely, honestly, it's if I look at it, it's going to inflict me in terms of behavior, and it's not something I really should be my focus area, because it's distracting. I get it from your perspective and everyone else.
We'll come back to it. I mean, look,
I know.
The beautiful thing here, I'm actually looking forward to the iOS app. So
it is ready. It is ready. I can show it to you, but it's just waiting on Apple to. And I'm going to use a very crude term here: pull finger out of the ass to publish it. It is here. It does exist. There we go. It's on my iPhone. So yeah. So
brilliant.
Yeah, so we're working on that, but that's that. Yeah, you can use it. I mean, Android one's great. I mean, we have many users. I mean, between you and me, obviously, and everyone else, I guess the whole world is Chinese love it because many VPN providers are blocked over there. And I mean, using even a VPN is illegal, but what they've done is they call it, I think, Great Firewall of China, and it blocks everything. And the main reason why it does that is because it blocks centralized servers. A lot of VPN providers use centralized servers. Yes, thank you, Cliff. But a lot of them use centralized providers, and so China blocks those. The beauty of our node infrastructure is these are all decentralized. Node provided by users, and so you can't just block all those IP addresses. You'd effectively have to block out the entire world. So, and that just can't work for them. So that's why one of our key areas are people in China, Iran, Cuba, many countries where there's a lot of restriction on both free speech and access to content. But obviously other people use it too for things like Netflix. I use it. I mean, I live abroad, but I watch UK Netflix.
Wow. So, I wanted to ask you actually, because I'm based over here in Abu Dhabi, so maybe I can tap into some UK TV. I haven't seen EastEnders in a long while.
You're not missing much, mate. So I haven't watched Corey or EastEnders in decades. So yeah.
Brilliant. I've got a couple of questions for you guys. Get your questions in, because I know time is ticking on a little bit before we continue. Okay. One of the popular questions is exchange listings. Now, I know you don't want to go that way, but I do want to quickly talk about
a never-ending question is crypto exchange listings.
Yeah, somebody said already you're sick and tired of hearing that. But one of the things, as they say, obviously, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. This chart here is been going absolutely insane. And look, you don't have to talk about pricing. I guarantee you, we talk about that every day. That's what the platforms are for. This is probably the first ever fair launched YouTube channel where we genuinely enjoy talking to leaders like yourself about this. But for me, as an investor, right now, if I had to part with some money and I'm looking through different projects, I would want to have something that can give me utility, of course, especially if you're a fundamental investor. This chart just doesn't slow down. It actually pisses us off sometimes. We talk privately, we're like, shit, we'll buy the dip. And all you guys do is give the middle finger to Bitcoin, because I can guarantee you back in the crazy dip that we've just had, I sat here with some dry powder day after day, waiting for a nice capitulation somewhere. Couldn't sniff it. In the end, I ended up buying at all-time highs. It's just the way it is.
Nature of the market, I guess. Look, I think look, and I don't normally comment kind of market trends. I really, really do steer away from that. I think a lot of this is a testament to where our focus has been, right? It hasn't been to look. A lot of crypto projects also manipulate their own markets, right? You have, look at some projects. They partake in a lot of whitewashing or in volumes.
Well, this is something we spoke about in at backstage, to be honest, and it was quite fascinating. I wish I could have recorded that, because your raw views on that is possibly something that the audience wants to hear, to be honest.
Well, look, a lot of them participate, obviously, in influencer shilling.
Right.
And I think, while I understand that, a lot of projects need to get exposure, obviously they see the easiest way is calls. But calls are expensive, right? Calls are very expensive. The other issue that you have is that there are many projects that don't really have anything tangible. They are just something on paper. I think many of them, are famous, but calls are notorious for promoting that. It's very deceitful practice. And look, the amount of times I've seen influencers, our community, bombard them with Octa, and they completely ignore it. They will completely ignore it as if we don't exist, and that's because we haven't paid them to shill it. That's it. That's really what it boils down to. And it's unfortunate. It's ultimately, these influencers are not promoting what's in the best interest of those people following them. They're promoting something that they feel is, beneficial to them, which is, I've got paid to show this. I also have a certain percentage of the supply. And then I can later on, I pump my own bags by promoting it to my own community and then dump it on them. And that's all it is, right? Or majority of influencers are.
I love that.
There are very few that are legitimate, but they do exist. They do exist. We have one that a lot. I'm going to give him a shout out. Yorichi, crypto. Yep. He's really genuine. And he's he'll promote projects that he finds value in. I had to give him a shout out because I find he's very purely because he's taking a moral approach. It really isn't anything. The issue that you have is this space is extremely deceitful, both from many projects standpoint, who will promote something they don't have, and they'll shill it. And unfortunately, I know there are people who do ask questions. I've seen cases where they actually, people complain they've been kicked out for asking questions. Others just ride the hype, right? And that hype lasts for a certain period of time. I think, projects such as us, Dynix, Casper, this is a solid foundation where we take a gradual growth approach. We're both very much focused on actual solution. We're not going to bullshit people and we're going to, hype that something we don't have. But of course, we're going to market what we do have, and that's the nature of it, right? And we're promoting our products and services, and that's something we're entitled to do. But we're not going to give false promises. Ultimately, at the end of the day, even the majority of projects are in this space to enrich themselves, and that isn't the focus. Our focus. And if it had been, we would have just launched a token. You've got to look at it this way. I could never really drive home this point enough, is that projects that are fair launched in this way.
Sorry about that. That's it. Listen, I did not encourage this.
Okay. But no, let me finish this point, is that, look, projects that are fair launch and really do show true. Don't forget, we've invested thousands of hours into development. When this is not a small feat, this is an extremely expensive endeavor. If we had wanted to do this, we could have done this. We launched a token, created some, brochures, and we said we're great, and paid some calls, and then and rug pull, and unfortunately, that's what many do. Whether it's a slow rug pull or a long rug pull, it's still a rug pull. Or some may have genuine intentions, but they eventually fade because the entire premise has been focused on that initial crypto marketing. And there's many projects that have taken that route. Look, there's been projects that have had promise. Like, I don't know if you remember Golem, for example.
Yeah.
They had a lot of promise. The issue you have with projects such as that, they invested so much money into the crypto marketing space. Eventually, the kitty is empty, effectively, to focus on that development, as opposed to taking the approach of focus on tech first. Focus on tech first. So what if you're going to be badgered by communities saying, "Oh, we need more influencers," and so on? Ignore it. Focus on what you're trying to do and deliver. What we're trying to do is change the technology layout of the blockchain. It needs to be taken seriously. One of the reasons, and as you can tell, I'm opinionated, so I apologize. One of the reasons why there's so much scrutiny in crypto and why there's so much push and drive for regulation is exactly this unregulated market where anyone can launch a token and just they rug on people, they do all these things, deceitful tactics. We've brought it on ourselves effectively. We're all to blame. I'm not saying me personally, but the point is the mentality, the approach, and the exact kind of, we've nurtured that, and so we've now brought it on ourselves. And it's unfortunate because a lot of that is, I worry sometimes, but on the other hand, I know what we're doing. I think we've democratized that computing power. We've unleashed creativity, and I often say that we unleashed the creativity on what people can do, and that just complete freedom. And look, this is one thing we added on our website is testimonials. I absolutely had to put this because I said, look, we have users. Let's be one of those rare projects that actually has testimonials from actual users. So we get a lot of these users and say, okay, I do share some, and we could update some of those from Visual Effects Studios as well. We've incorporated our rendering solution into their workflows. But anyway, obviously, I digress. The point is, you get my point. I could talk gap for hours, obviously.
That's brilliant. Yeah. It's brilliant. I think, look, that opinion is something that we sort of like, we felt victims. Obviously, most of us are crypto investors, and it's very difficult to stand in this space to be kind of like honest and say, look, even as a YouTuber, look, I don't need your money. I want to do what I like. There's an element of freedom that's gone, because I guess when people actually depend on making money from their audience, it puts them under more compromising situations. It was like, what's that old Michael Douglas movie, Indecent Proposals? That
Yeah,
that's what I call it nowadays. So no, I just love that, man, because it is as straight as an arrow, and you can actually tell from what's going on. And again, I don't like to show you the chart, but the building is a consequence. The price is a consequence of the action. And there's another thing you said to me in backstage, which was, sometimes you see those projects being shilled initially, they tend to do well.
yes,
But over time, this is why it's in our community, we've got a bag of cryptocurrencies we're going to come back for in the bear market, right? So, you have to do the work today in order to be multi-cycle millionaire, because most people think, yeah, I'm going to come into crypto and become rich. And sadly, that's not always the case. But if you've got an objective to free your life over multiple cycles, the people that you knew back in 2016 or 2014 that were in crypto have all been, multi-cycle millionaires. And that's how you build the wealth. So I really appreciated that, man. No pump and dumps, no get to work. And I know it pissed you off, because we spoke about that for 5 minutes in backstage.
right. Yeah, no, I know. And look, I mean, I don't blame people from making money. Those who invest in those short, coal influenced projects to make quick money, but realize that what you're getting into, and realize when to get out, right? just that would be my but I'm not a trader. I only have Octa, so I'm going to be completely frank with you. I've had Bitcoin and past the ETH. I only have Octa, and it's what I truly believe in.
Right.
And I'm in this I'm in this till retirement, effectively. So
there is something we want to share with you.
We have a passion for this. You've got to understand, this is driven by passion, and this is something that we love. This is going to sound weird, but I get off on seeing all these renders, all these fantastic works that are done. Right? It really, really gets me excited. I sit there. I've been known to sit there and just watch it render, and I'm sure for many it might be like watching paint dry, but for me, I don't know, it fills me, because it gives me this, whoa, this is being rendered on our platform. It's just amazing. I mean, I recently, actually, one artist, for example, he's going to be featured in a 3D artist magazine, and apparently he's going to be adding Octa logo there as well, which I hope is true. I let the cat out of the bag a bit, obviously. I'm leaky now, Cliff too. But yeah, he told us he's being featured in his artworks that he rendered on our platform are being featured in a 3D art world or something like that in the magazine. And so he's going to include a piece around Octa render there, which is fantastic. I hope that's true, because I'm going to love it. I really am. I'm going to market that to hell. And but that's what I mean, is I will market that I will use, because that is legitimate marketing, both to those people who are interested in Octa as a crypto project, but those to also end users, because it provides legitimacy. It's all about driving that legitimacy. We are a legitimate platform. We're a legitimate services. We're a service provider. We're not just pretentious, assholes who are pretending that we're doing something we're not. Apologies again for the crudity on stream, but I couldn't really explain it anyway.
I've got something for you. There's something on the screen there from the big man, Cliff. Look, I have two questions for you. I mean, I'll save the best till last, because I think the community will really appreciate that. Maybe three questions, very quick questions. The first one is actually non-crypto related, and it's about European labor laws, and it's a bit of a joke we had last night, as it is on the screen. Why do you think the AI tech data center is taking longer to build? And is it because the fact that AI tech are using one elderly gentleman to complete this process? It's actually a joke, by the way. You don't have to answer that.
I'm not going to answer that.
We were just going off this crazy last night. Anyway, I don't want to put you into
there's a lot of political shifting in the EU right now, especially in relation to immigration. I don't want to get into this. This is a dangerous topic, mate.
It's a different.
I'm just saying political shifts. Obviously, many countries are affecting, are impacted by immigration, and some are getting more strict on it. So maybe not so many cash in hand jobs.
You're obviously getting a lot of compliments here as well. We have to give you your flowers, brother. People are really appreciative. And the second question is, if you've answered it. I mean, Octa is your only project. We're not going to ask you about your other holdings or other preferred cryptocurrencies. However, exactly. So that's straightforward, guys. You can be a one coin man.
It would be disingenuous of me if I wasn't, because ultimately, what's the incentive? I need to focus on where my my project. So, and I understand. I of course I believe in Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is the first, and I'm not going to say anything against Bitcoin or Ethereum even, but I have to hold what I really truly believe in. What's my passion?
Well, there's a question here for you, for Mr. Gregory, and I guess everything that we discussed tonight is the real strength, and
diversity and ability to offer these multiple services. Think about it this way: many projects. I think we mentioned it briefly. Many projects are confined to specific areas. What we do is offer a wealth of services in a diverse area of sectors, and so because of that diversification, we can have a lot more broader appeal. Now, if we're going, and I know we haven't explored some of the other aspects of how we're going to branch out, but I do have a plan. We have documented it, but we have a plan of creating individual websites for Octa Render and so on. Actually, that's some of that is already in progress, and so. The idea being is that when people are searching for a VPN provider, they'll just through good SEO, they'll be redirected to PN. For rendering, they'll be redirected to a render platform, and so I don't want to market just to an artist the AI services. I don't want to market the compute services. They might not be interested, but all these will be under the OctaSpace umbrella. So think about it, kind of subdivisions, right? And that's the next step. In our approach, and it's targeting individual market segments and hitting those with our individual marketing strategies.
Well, and the last one is the Yeti said you don't hold any Dynix.
Well, Cliff, feel free to send me some. I don't mind an airdrop or two.
Brilliant, brother. Listen, when are we going to have you on? I would love to do one with you and Cliff, if time permits. And when can we have you back? I mean, I know you got a tight schedule.
Next week's fine. So we can do next week. I've got another Twitter space on Friday. And I know that I need to schedule another AMA with Ironfish. They're running a Crypto Olympics. We're all these some other projects that are doing the Crypto Olympics. We're just having some fun on the side, chess, poker, and so on. So that's going to be interesting. But we'll sync up with Cliff and you, and we can schedule something in.
That's fantastic. And finally, where do you see the cycle? Do you see a left-leaning cycle, or do you see a proper?
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear
cycle. I know what you mean. Cycles, no.
Go on, fella.
I have some bicycles down in my garage here. Feel free.
Brilliant, fantastic. Listen, it's been absolute pleasure to host you. Thank you for coming, obviously, on behalf.
Did we miss any questions? I saw some questions. I don't mind answering some questions if you're in a rush.
Questions, guys.
I did see some, and I thought we might come back to some of them.
Let me see. Outsourcing. What's this guy saying?
How much this dude paying for all this? Seen all this all before? I've not paid anything, so. But I think we talked about it. Well, I don't mind answering direct questions. I'm not. I'm a no BS kind of guy. So.
Oh, let's do it, man.
There was a guy actually. I saw one. There we go. When will the rest of the team be doxed? I wanted to answer this because I keep hearing this, and let me explain. I really do want to get into this because it's. I think a lot of people misunderstand. So look, doxing an entire development team to a whole project. Well, you've got to understand who decides the direction of a project. Artem and myself are the leadership, right? So we make all the strict direction or all the key decisions. We're the key decision makers, and that's why we've exposed ourselves, right? If anything, happens, we're the ones responsible, and ultimately we'll take the blame, right? And so we need to be exposed, and obviously I don't mind engaging and answering direct questions. And so the whole point is you trust who's the leadership behind the project, right? We have people who are employees, right? We employ developers. And ultimately, they take our direction. I've never seen a reason to dox them for two reasons. One, they don't make any of the key decisions. They do make some of the technical decisions in terms of how something will be implemented, or they'll take our direction of how we want it to behave and so on. But they are paid to do a job. The other issue is this space is extremely cutthroat. And last thing I want is our developers to be poached. I don't know if how well some of you know, but especially even IT, but especially in this case, those who understand crypto and technology, they are poached. Right, and I don't want to lose those developers. I know that, I know even Dyanix have had some of their developers attempted poaching those from Dyanix. So, and I'm sure Cliff will openly say that. I'm not going to say anything more, but the poaching is something that exists. And the last thing I want is my developers to be poached. So you've got to understand. Arthur and myself make key decisions. We're ultimately responsible and why we're mainly doxed.
Right.
Others are developers. They do what they're told, or we're not slave owners, but we give them direction and we would tell them what we want. We pay them for that job, right? It's just like anyone else. They get paid. You don't dox an entire company, right? You don't know everyone who works in Apple. You knew Steve Jobs, Billy. Right, you knew the people who are leading that, right? You knew Bill Gates from Microsoft at the time, and so on. And so we are ultimately the key decision makers, and that's what I see as who's important to be doxed. There is really no reason for those developers to be doxed.
Well, I'd like to add something to that as well. It's incredibly interesting to see how people want to just have their cake and eat it, right? So a lot of the people calling for dox projects are people that would buy an anonymous team, shady AI deep in project that disappears on Uniswap. Now you've got the leadership here, and there's a reason why I've had this up, because obviously if people want to find you, they can find you on LinkedIn, they can find you on Twitter. By the way, if you're not following this legend here, of course, you can just find him on Octa Tarik. On
Telegram or Discord. I answer. I do actually engage directly. So
it's very active. Yeah. So guys, if you want to follow and ask questions directly, you're gonna get a no BS answer. So that is absolutely the problem that I have. Do I go fully anonymous? But then you've got two leaders here fully on the internet with their name and details on there, and people are saying, okay, I want it's like having the the dinner lady being doxed. I mean, back in my school days. I want everybody.
What's the point? It's you've got the head teacher, but what do you really need to dox the dinner lady, right? Or the cleaners or so on. Or maybe the what was it? Prefect, so that was. But it's a frustrating question. But but look, I understand in complete open source projects, those who, like, let's say in a development project where they're developing strictly just blockchain, they're all participating in the direction of that. So everyone's doxed. They're actually, making key decisions that are going to impact that. These guys are not, right? They're employed by us. They get paid directly by us. We hold the purse strings, right? So I think that's one thing. But also, I mean, I guess, there are certain parts of our service that are open source, others are not, right? We're not gonna make our VPN app open source. I mean, we've already had someone copy some of our stuff before. And so, we made it, especially our rendering platform, some of it is proprietary. We really don't want to, if it's what we've developed, spend thousands of hours of engineering and cost money, and somebody could just clone it, put it up and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to launch another token. And here we go, I have rendering, and something we've paid, a lot of money to develop. So there is always that kind of fine balance. But our blockchain is open source, and our website is open source. Some of our other stuff is open source. So what we feel comfortable is open source. But other things, we build proprietary technology. We're trying to change things. Of course, we're not going to open source our code. So that's another thing. I know no one asked that, but I might as well mention it, right? Some other great questions. Architecture mentions around rendering was such a pain in the backside. It took forever. So yeah, absolutely, exactly. That's one great thing, right? Is you've got product advertisements and rendering, all that. So you've got a building architecture and so on. All that can be done and rendered out, and you're doing that across the world. So I think that's great. I seem to be taking your seat. Sorry, mate. I was just quickly flicking through some of the comments.
I know. Listen, I know you're not comfortable with some of these. I mean, these are the statements. There's few. Again, we have fun here, right? I mean, one of the things I said to you tonight was this is a slightly different space, because even a lot of player haters in the comments, I never ban them unless they're part of a rug pull, or they're just straight funny people. But one of the places that I just want to call out a few people in the comments who are not disrespectful, but extremely annoying, because they come here every day, and I've made a page for them, right? You're gonna love this, Tarik. So this is basically how I deal with the trolls, and the donkey's becoming a troll. We've got Michael Jackson there doing Thriller or something in the comments. But I posted something the other day for these guys, and I just wanted you to have a laugh. By the way, great AMA. If anybody hasn't seen this, jump on it. It's on X. When did I post this? Where is it? Come on, let me find this. Let's have a laugh here, mate.
The funny thing is, though, you mentioned trolls, but like, we get them in our Discord, Telegram. I mean, even the biggest,
There you go, bro.
You have to accept critics. And actually, I've never banned anyone, right? I really, the only times I banned someone for being very racist, and I banned spammers. That's it. But otherwise, like, even the negative comments, I will directly address. I don't have any issues. And that's because I feel comfortable doing that, because we've got nothing to hide, right? And we're so transparent as we are, and we actually have something legitimate, that there's nothing really negative you can really throw. You can't throw anything else effectively.
Well, exactly. And I have something called the player haters ball, which I normally celebrate this with. But listen, man, you've been absolutely fantastic. One of these guys' comments, let me see. Look at this guy.
What?
Okay, that's not even relevant, but he was saying some stuff about so look, stuff like this. 2 dudes outsourcing devs, like stuff like that, with no valid so mate,
this is not our political. Well, I mean, look, mate. No, I'll answer the question, mate. I mean, when we say outsourcing, we pay them for work. If they do something on the side, It's none of my business, to be frank with you. In all companies, I mean, I've worked in businesses, especially software development. Trust me, majority of them are doing freelance work on the side. And that's the nature of. But I mean, I don't know what the point of this is really, to try and be negative. Is we employ people, we pay them for a job. What they do in their private time, as a side job, I don't know. I don't care. Frankly, it's their complete entitlement to do that. So what's the point of that? But no, there's an aim at that comment, and whether it's to try and somehow, I mean, put some negative connotations or cause detrimental impact to somehow reputation. Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, look at what we've built and developed. So I think I would say that's what matters. Now, whether who did it, how they did it, does it really matter to you? No, I mean, really. Right? We have products and services, they work, right? And they're used. Does it really matter to you who bloody built it and how many people built it? No. I mean, if we're going to be completely open here, and do you really need to know, look, one of our key guys is called Derek. There you go. You want Derek on the website so you can see his face and say we've paid him to do that. Great.
Well, look, like I said, I wish obviously, we could talk about this, because again, the reason I was saying, I was having a laugh about the Player Haters Convention is from a Dave Chappelle sketch. I don't know if you know, but they just come together and all they say is hate, hate, hate. And the biggest hater takes the annual Player Haters Ball Award. And the reason I was saying that, MJ, and I'm going to direct you, MJ, you came in very aggressively with no facts. Like, for example, if I point this chart to you, right? That's all I have to say. The project is building. There's a lot of evidence here of exactly what's going on. What planet are you from? So look, if you're going to ask questions, let them be meaningful. And if you're going to hate, and I say hate is sometimes a strong word, but I think you've got to come up with facts that can't be refuted when you make a statement or ask a question. So if I have some evidence that the entire industry, and again, Cliff said something unbelievable, because I totally agree with this fact. Even on my own private business, I have to outsource a lot of my stuff. That's just the way it is. I don't produce milk. I don't have cows in the backyard.
Yeah.
Well,
I mentioned it earlier, right? Companies outsource VFX studios to produce 3D content for commercials, for movies, for all sorts, right? It's nature of the world. We're not outsourcing it to other companies, though. We do actually pay these guys and are employed. So outsourcing is probably the wrong word here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what.
It's a great question here, actually.
How is Octa working with regulators to ensure customers are not taken advantage of? In what sense taken advantage of? Maybe clarify that.
Maybe it's I mean, you're talking about VPN jurisdictions, or I don't understand, Joseph.
I'm not clear on the question.
Yeah. Clear the question up, and we will take it. But listen, I've kept you now for 1 hour 13 minutes.
I don't mind. It's a good chat. This has been. You can tell this is very much different in tone to many of the other ones. It's been quite relaxing and obviously very off the cuff. But I mean, look, I don't mind that. As I said, I'm a no BS kind of person. So,
lovely, mate. Just a question, man. Do you reckon England will win the Euros?
No, not gonna happen, mate.
No chance.
It's going home. They're going home there. Listen, last time I watched the Euros. Oh, mate, I'm just going to show my age now. But Euro '96, and that was the last time when that song came out. It's coming home, and then since then I've just written off UK or England specifically. Yeah, so
let's see.
They lose them penalties every time.
Well, look, let me just get Cliff in. I think he wants to say a couple of things. Yeah, grab the line,
Oh
Cliff.
yeah, sneaky.
Let's bring him in.
Germany is going to win. It says.
Yeah,
To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me. Like I think, yeah.
Turkey just scored again. I mean, yeah, no
Germany.
wonder everyone's watching the football, right?
Yeah, bad timing, mate.
Brilliant. Let me Cliff, are you on? Where's Cliff?
I see him on chat.
Yeah, he's yeah, I've just sent you the link. Come on in, mate. Don't be shy. Belter said Holland. You know, I listen, I always turn this into a football Euro 96 type of a show because we are of course football. I'm a football fan. I'm a huge Arsenal fan. Who's your team, by the way, Tarik? I didn't.
I I used to support Liverpool.
Oh, okay.
But
No more
listen,
respect.
like my life has changed a lot in the last decade or so. So football hasn't been part of my life a lot, especially with two kids. So yeah, that kind of. But yeah, I used to support Liverpool.
Brilliant stuff. Everybody's like watching the Euros, but obviously
But I
we
decided to watch this. Oh, that's very brave. Hey, Cliff, how you doing?
How you doing?
there you are.
Oh,
Welcome.
well, I enjoyed the AMA, by the way.
Listen, we're going to do it again.
For poking too much, Tarik.
What's your
Brilliant.
beef? What's your beef?
No, like I say, I think you both made very genuine and valid points around, you know, there's a lot of negativity in crypto, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think me and Tarik have probably had our fair share of it because of the way we do our business is more business first, the crypto second side of things. We've took our fair share of bad publicity for that one, right? Everyone says, oh, we should always just drive the crypto price. Well, that only gets you so far, right? That'll buy you maybe at this time and day and age, probably maybe a year if you're lucky, and then your project's dead.
Yeah.
Like, because all the hype's gone at that point. Whereas, you know, we've talked about this a lot, right? I would say personally that building a business on top of a blockchain is the better option for a longevity perspective.
Right.
So
it is. I mean, look, I think you make a good point. Is that traditional spaces? There will be a lot, especially as regulations get more stricter. There needs to be people are going to be looking for freedom, for areas where they can have freedom. Blockchain is that avenue. And I often said we can fuel innovation because we have a lot more freedom in a space of what we can do and what we can. Don't forget, look, I mentioned AI training, right? There are, and I know, Cliff, this is a contention point, but I often say I'm in disagreement with limiting what people do with AI to a certain degree. I think when they're training on certain data sets, look, I understand certain things can be moral, but you can't also limit an AI model based on certain cultural norms or what you deem is right, because you're weighing it in a certain direction, you're influencing it, and so it'll work within your little parameters that you've given it. And that's what happens in the traditional space. Look, even ChatGPT. You ask it to do certain things, it'll say, I can't do that, I can't say that, or it's immoral, or it's against my strict parameters. On the other hand, why not teach it everything that's bad and good, right? It needs to be able to have that judgment or give you that balanced view. As we said, we often try and look balanced view, yet we're progressing in AI, but we're actually influencing and making it biased. And how is that good for progress? How is that good for innovation? It's not.
no, it's not. I mean, the only reason why we've had to put some constraints on ours, right, is because when you start getting into the realm of quantum stuff, if you get somebody that's very, very smart, then they could cause a lot of problems, right? And that's then we're getting into whole legal realms of problems, right?
Of course.
So we've had to be very sensible with our system. Doesn't mean that we want to be an all-seeing eye that's controlling everything that's running on our network. That's not the intention, right? Our intention is to make it a safe environment to use. So we have to have a few rules around ours, but realistically, we try and be as hands-off as possible with what's being run on our network at the end of the day.
I mean, look, we have pitfalls, same thing even with VPN.
Yeah.
We don't regulate what people can do on the VPN.
Correct.
Now, we expect everyone to act responsibly. And 99.9% of people are, do legitimate traffic. They're not doing anything remotely illegal, but we can't control that aspect of it. But I mean, that's the nature of any VPN provider, really.
Of course.
And that's the case but we do shield ourselves, and we have, we've put some terms and conditions we expect people to abide by. Right.
Yeah.
And also node providers, for example, can't be held responsible. And that has to be made clear. So that's like, virtual contract, call it. But, at the end of the day, we're not going to limit. And I will always promote this freedom. I will always promote and nurture this freedom for people to be able to do what they want to do. We didn't create the internet to then suddenly put restrictions on them. And what can be done on the internet and so on. And, as I said, most people are not, don't have bad intentions. There will always be a few bad apples.
There's always going to be the one exception to the rule, right? There's always those singular people that pop up. I mean, we see it in YouTube with people in chats. We find it in crypto projects. You might have a team of 10, but it only takes one bad actor to actually bring a brand new project down before it's even got off the ground.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that happens all the time. So of course, what me and Tarik are trying to show is that there are some better options out there for blockchains to actually, like what we're doing with Ironfish with the Crypto Olympics, right? Like even DXB's on Team YouTube. So I mean, at the end of the day, we're all doing this not because for any other reason, but just to be a part of the community, right? So that we start to get rid of that disconnect between people who work in the space and people who just have an interest in the space, whether that's from an investment perspective, mining, all those kind of different things, right? There's a big disconnect between those two. If you work for a crypto industry, and that includes YouTube, for example, right? Because you report on it, you don't get the same level of connect as if you're just a member of the community, right?
Absolutely.
The too many projects have that big cut-off definition, and then you find that 6 months, 12 months, when a project's having its maybe struggle point, that all that community just disappears.
Well, this is
when realistically they need to be there to support.
Well, you make an excellent point, mate, because I think sometimes you're damned if you do, and
absolutely
you're damned if you don't. Yeah. One of the, like, for example, having you and Tarik here shows the community that they can access information that would otherwise be behind VCs.
Actually, me and Tarik are very, very similar when it comes to, if somebody asks us a question, rather than that being pushed to one side or removed entirely, even if it's negative, we both answer them.
Yeah.
We're not some hiding. Of the leaders, to be honest, in this space. And this is why I think sometimes retail deserves the shit that they get, the shit that we get. I'm part of retail. I buy projects with my community, not before them, not 6 weeks or 6 months before them. I buy it and I screenshot that and I send it to them. And I think sometimes it's almost like, it's like a Stockholm syndrome, man. The space needs help psychologically, because where I have a problem is the more you give, the more bullshit you get. But
Yes, it's true.
honestly,
you're not wrong.
and
The
it's
more
like,
transparent we are, honestly, the more transparent we are,
worse it
it
becomes
seems
for us.
sometimes the more negative people can get. Honestly, I've actually
100%.
said this, and I said, seriously, it's like I've seen more positive communities with projects that don't seem to be as transparent. And
anonymous.
the more you give, the more they take. And
bullshit they get.
apologies if that offends anyone, but it's true, right? The
Yeah,
more,
the
like,
game,
right, you said an example. We doxed ourselves. Suddenly, oh, but that's not enough. I want the rest of the team. Well, but as you said, there are other projects that don't dox anyone, but they're
Well,
okay with it.
It's
with
the worst one, right? So Dynix is a lot bigger than most people realize. Our leadership team's
Yeah.
quite big, right? We
Yeah.
announced all of our leadership team. It's a quite big team. What people don't realize is that actually Dynix is a staff total of almost 50 now. Like, that's not a small team. And if like, we're not going to list every single person on our team, because like we've mentioned, right, we have had legitimate people try to poach our staff, and that's not good, because that puts a brakes on our progress if we're losing staff, right? Because it takes time to recruit somebody, time to train somebody on your methodologies of how you want your work delivered, right? And if you've been working with that individual for a couple of years, that could railroad you for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately,
replacing technical resources is not easy.
No,
It takes a long time to find the right people to do the right job. Understand? I mean, look exactly what each of us are building. You need a person to understand first the tech stack, then understand what they're building. I mean, not everyone can even build a VPN. Not everyone can build a rendering platform. Not everyone can build, quantum computing logic.
and then it's also overcoming the challenges that you don't see coming, right? Like you said, when you started doing rendering, right, you had to figure out how to do that with latency in the way,
Right.
and decentralized,
This is
distribution of
You're
the
doing
job.
this across the world, multiple computers, and it's all being done in real time. And you have to get there's a lot of hurdles, technical hurdles exist, and a lot of that takes time. Development takes time. But this is why we keep saying, and why I keep mentioning the word innovation, right? We are fueled, and that passion fuels our innovation.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I agree. Like, I've never heard of any company in the world who doxes their entire staff list. It would be impractical, for one, right? Because you're gonna even be listing, the janitors and the people who cut all the grass. Like, seriously, then you're gonna expand on that and say, oh, I want every mechanic that goes and fixes any of your vehicles, right? Anyone who then interacts with you. At that point, where's the privacy factor as well? Because just because we are a team doesn't mean that we don't actually require our own version of privacy as well. We signed up for a certain level of being out in the public. Doesn't mean that we lose our privacy aspect, right? We are still people at the end of the day. We have the same rights as everyone else for privacy. I've got family.
That
Tarik's
actually
got
leads
family.
me.
You've got family, right? we all expect there to be a certain level of privacy for our families, right?
Well, that's why the meme coins are, pump fun and all of this, all of that stuff. 90% or 99% of those projects rug.
Oh yeah,
like literally.
I was looking at the stats at the beginning of March, right? There was over 400 rug pulls on Solana. And that was just at the beginning of March, from the beginning of the year.
Unbelievable, man.
That is so damaging for the space, right? Because all that does is give it the wrong people looking at it, right? Now you're looking at having regulators come in because they have to make sure that people aren't, losing houses over this, and they are. There are legitimate people losing their homes over doing this. And all that will do is push it further and further towards regulation completely over.
It's not just memes though. This is a symptomatic, like, so I've seen a bunch in Deepin, right? Deepin is suddenly a hot narrative. Then you got AI, that's a hot narrative, right? So they follow these narratives, and then suddenly you've got projects springing left, right, and center in the same narrative. And I've mentioned to you the usual approach is they hit calls straight away, even before they launch, right? They reach out to calls. They already have these deals ready, right? And they've kind of made agreements. Oh, we're going to give you this much, and so on. And so suddenly these calls, you find these influencers. Oh yeah, I found out about a project that's about to launch. How the hell did you find out about that right beforehand? Think about it. That should be a red flag straight away. Hey, you know about a project that's about to launch and no one else does. That's interesting, right? But that, as I said, that's a red flag. But unfortunately, many of them do that, and eventually they'll rug. There's many of them that will rug, and that's the nature of the game, unfortunately. And as I said to you, exactly this situation is what's causing more spotlight to be shown on crypto and more regulation, right, and restrictions to try and put into place so that let people still, lose less money, which I completely agree with. I genuinely don't want anyone to lose any money. That's that really shouldn't be the case.
A heavily regulated, environment, because that could actually stop a lot of development in its tracks.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people are going to get out the space, and therefore there won't be the ability for those projects to be able to be self-funded, and you'll lose a lot of the smaller projects before they've had a chance to really take hold. Like if you look at Octa and Dynix, just as an example, right? We both struggled to see any price appreciation for the first 6 months, because that's generally how it works with a fair launch project, right? There's nothing there to push it behind, right? And of course, so we've took ages to see any benefit, but like I got in very early on Octa. I got in even earlier on Dynix, right? I was very fortunate. Like within the first 6 weeks, I found Dynix. Like that was a complete shot in the dark, right? I took a really big gamble. I really spent a lot of time learning the tech so that I could actually
the mining
have
aspect, Yeah, but do you again? That's a very important point, and I think we're almost talking about two different worlds. Where this is, the space where you guys operate. It's almost like, Bitcoin in its early days. You're physically mining. You understand what you have in your hands.
The only difference between when that launched and when, like, for example, we launched, effectively, you don't get the luxury of the first 7 years of everyone leaving you to build. Nowadays, you're lucky if you get 6 months before you get that kind of pressure, right? Just the expectations are so much bigger now because of what Bitcoin has done, right? Because of what Ethereum has done. And every time another one effectively does mega numbers and stays there and going forward, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, it'll put even more pressure on those smaller, teams to actually put in even more work. And it'll get to the point where, effectively, if you're not able to deliver something within the first 3 months of you launching, you're not going to get any traction at all. But one consequence of that might be that you might find that a lot of teams will develop off-chain first and actually come to market with a much better product. So it might actually have a kind of opposite effect of what most people would expect. Be quite nice, actually, because then it'd be refreshing, because the only projects launching will be actually ones that really have a use case. Like we talk about all the time. If it has no use case, why does it exist in the first place?
Look at it this way. I've often tried to draw parallels. I mean, look, crypto is very much similar to traditional stock markets, right? In one sense, but the value of a stock for a company is driven by its performance, right? Its results. Crypto is different. Crypto is generated by very much hype, and you see something that doesn't have any value suddenly has on paper value, right?
Yep.
And how something can be worth 200-300 million market cap for a meme. But it happens. It's very weird, right? It's nothing results driven. There's nothing tangible really there. But that is kind of a little bit strange. But it is what it is.
Absolutely.
Which is why, to be honest, a lot of investors are frustrated for two reasons. One, the sheer ton of crap out there. So again, when you have teams that are willing to talk to the communities, there's also this shit barrier from like influencers and people blocking knowledge because they demanded money up front, and it's a cesspit. But I do believe that when you see the good guys, and these good guys are in front of you, these are people answering your questions, I genuinely believe people actually got hurt so much just by what's happening with the price action, the long bear market we had. And a lot of people have personal pressures. I mean, globally, if you look at, global, the way people live under pressure every day, work, people are working 9 to 5, and the only thing they can do when they come home is look at their wallet and see that drawn down 70%. So I do understand where people are coming from, but I think there's a way to learn about people and learn about projects, because people are projects, right? People make projects. So there is a way to address that in a manner that actually, if somebody was face to face with you, they would treat you completely different compared to if it's just keyboard warrior. And I think that's a systematic consequence of just people either not having a clear plan for their bull run. In my first bull cycle, the plan was never to be a millionaire. My first plan was to pay off my uni debt.
My first bull cycle was to buy my house.
From Kingston Uni.
Mine was to buy my first house. It wasn't until the second cycle that I made some really good money. And like I said to you, in the chat, effectively the first million that you ever make is the hardest, right?
Yeah,
because you learn all your mistakes, right, along the way in your first million. The second million is a lot easier at that point, right? Like legitimately, I've spoke to plenty of very wealthy people over the years, and they always say the same thing. It took them, years and years to make their first mil. Their second mil effectively was over half the difference, like in time, because they already knew all the mistakes they were going to make. And if we restarted Dyanix and Octa tomorrow, we could probably have our systems to where they're at now within 6 months.
Yeah,
because you learn so much.
Because we already have learned all those mistakes, right?
Yeah,
but that comes with part of building a business. I've built a business from scratch over here, right? 12 years it took me to build it up to something, really big.
Think
about it. We can't run a meme coin.
Do you know what I mean?
I know, not to interrupt, but shall we try and because I don't want to. I know we said we were going to have a separate stream between us.
Oh yeah, we should definitely.
Yeah. So let's not digress here. I think let's answer the last couple of questions. I will need to drop off because I need to go put my kids to bed.
I'll hold that question for you then to our next day. I'll ask you Friday actually when we're in our next day, mate.
So you want to take this one? I think this one is.
I do want to take this one. I think there's a misunderstanding there. So we don't have multiple projects. We are one project. OctaSpace is one project. These are just different services. There's nothing to fall or fail. These are just services that we build for users to use. It's compute services, right? There's no falling per se or failing.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. As long as the founders are doxed.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually think that's the sensible approach. If the people who are making the decisions are being transparent and known, then I think that's, to me, what you get out of any other business in the world, right? You generally only hear about the leadership team members. I think that's totally great.
Must said everything is a Ponzi, and I tend to agree with him maybe 90% of the shit out there is 100%, but there's real projects delivering real services, and I think that's where most of Web3 and crypto is for. Great show, guys. We're gonna summarize it. I'm gonna also have to run, but this has been absolutely cracking, man. We went through a lot of stuff. Good comparison between crypto and this is really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in
Actually,
agreement with that.
it's really very similar to the .com bubble.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Look, I'm going to have to go as well, but it's been nearly 2 hours. Incredible. So put the kids to sleep. I'm going to watch the highlights of the football, and Cliff is probably going to mine some more Bitcoin because I know he's got a lot of
Oh, we should definitely sync back up again, though. We'll have another one of these sessions. I think that's it was good.
I always
enjoyed
enjoy chatting to Tarik anyway because
Yeah.
like we've got a lot in common.
Yeah, brilliant, guys. Look, it's been amazing. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you both next week.
All right.
No worries.
Cheers. Have a
Thank you
great
so much.
great day. Rest of your day.
Thank you so much, brothers. Take care. Good night. Come on, England.